All right. So, first off and foremost, apologize for, the voice and probably, you know, I don't know, coming off, some sort of sickness or what have you. But, I don't know, I was playing, good God. I was playing, a video game last night, and I found myself sitting there thinking, I'd min-max every last bit of it or whatever, and even the game that I was playing. I mean, well, it doesn't matter what it is, but long story short, you work on every little thing. You start out, like the real world. With anything, you start out sucking at everything, and the more that you do things that utilize those skills, the more those skills, like level up and all of that. And it's the same exact thing with, anything that you want to be good at. Nobody's, starting out, real good at whatever. And if there's another human being that was able to, achieve anything at doing anything, then that means, the rest of us can too. Some people might have, slightly better, I don't even know how to say it, either be more interested in specific fields or have, a slight natural ability towards, certain things. And that's a good thing overall, if we were all, I don't know, interested in the same things or skilled in the same areas, then, we'd just, we'd have massive downsides as a whole and what have you. Well, that's neither here nor there, but long story short, I'm playing this game where, you start out sucking and, over time you just, you get better at whatever you do. And, my dumbass, I did all of the different, side quests, min-maxed every, last bit of it or whatever. And, when I came back to like the main story or whatever, it was just, like a mile, above what the challenges are. All the NPCs are all like, oh, this is getting bad or whatever, this is the worst. And I'm just sitting there just one shot and, like everything down. And, it's the, maybe that's a bad example, but it got me thinking about it this morning, why don't I do that to, everything, in my own personal life. And, it's because it's, it's the gamification of it, the, time on task, those are very different. So, I did all of that in that, video game or whatever, probably in the course of a couple of hours, where, the real life, I mean, you don't get the same benefit from, an hour committed, to all the way to like max level or whatever. So, but that's neither here nor there. It is the same principle though, whether or not you're gonna, see that incremental progress. That's the difference there. And I don't know, I had some other analogy where it's, like spooling up a turbo. There's no, additional power gained when you're, the turbo's unspooled or whatever. It's just sitting there, taking up weight. But once it's got that, enough ram air, coming through it, then we're at a whole different power band. So, it's another way to look at it. But, I'm probably getting all rambly now and whatnot, but, yeah, I mean, last year, I probably tried to set out, get down onto, some goal that's, a little above my, my little britches here, but, doesn't mean, you can't still, break that off into more, smaller chunks and, keep taking, runs on it or whatever. But, that kind of, I'm not going to lie, it, took all the wind out of my sails, and I don't know, that's another one of my personal things that, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. You can try to do something and, you believe in it, I don't know. You know what I mean? Just, you see it all the way through, in your little brain, whatever, but, stuff happens and, I don't know, you find yourself back at like square one or what have you, and, that sucks. And, I've been sitting here for the last like, month or two, just excuse me, whining about it, wallowing in it, and, not really doing anything, but, I don't know, starting to feel better in more ways than one. So, who needs to hear that, but, it's the same thing for everybody, I'd imagine. I'm not trying to be one of those, I don't know, you know what I mean or whatever, one of those like I don't know, shouldn't even say that. But that's not, that's not my department. Where was I going with that? But yeah, long story short, I just need to get back on schedule. What I got is, a few random goals, and, what I plan on doing is, putting 30 minutes to, maybe an hour and, 3 main lanes or something along those lines, and, taking little jumps at it at every time, whether or not I want to, share with everybody else out there what those particular goals would be. That's a different thing, and I think it's not a bad thing to internalize those things and then just keep making little mental progress bars as we're all going. So but different people, like I was saying, have different strengths, and be able to realize those goals in different ways, where I prefer to I don't know, I don't know how to say it, like I know what I'm doing and I know what the progress is on that, and I know what I need to do. Whether or not I'm going to make myself do it, that's kind of where those, external factors can come into play or whatever. But, at the end of the day, I'm going to be pretty self-motivated to do whatever. It's, the other differences in the real world, is actually like dedicating that time to doing it, like, I don't know, I started watching the, what is it, the MCU, the Marvel series or whatever, and I was, I found myself this one, I'm like, what, like, don't get me wrong, they did a great job with all that stuff, but, in terms of like furthering my goals would be, spending an hour, doing that, is that, what happens. And don't get me wrong, you also need to take time for yourself, so, maybe that, whiny little wallowy whatever, maybe that, is just, my subconscious forcing myself to, recharge or what have you. But, that doesn't spool the turbo is what I'm getting at, so I don't know, probably real rambly, probably, no new information, but, if that helps you get back on track, if that spools your turbo, then, that's what I'm shooting for. But, other than that, if not, sorry, had to listen to me ramble about fucking, a bunch of nothing there. But yeah, hope you're doing well, and hopefully, that means something to somebody out there. So.